So this morning I thought we'd begin by lying down, finding a shape that works for you. That might be Shavasana, perhaps the knees are bent. Softening into your shoulders, allowing your shoulders to rest on the floor beneath you. Notice how your physical body is feeling today. Just acknowledging any aches or pains, niggles or knots, so that it can, or they can, inform your practice, your physical practice today. Noticing areas of softness and ease. And perhaps you begin to notice your breath. Bring your attention to your inhalation and exhalation. Breathing in and out through your nose if that feels comfortable today. Following the journey of your breath as you inhale. Where does your inhalation move to? Where does it end? Perhaps it's possible to begin to lengthen it just for a moment. Maybe you can feel into your breath, moving, traveling a little deeper. And then perhaps you begin to watch the journey of your exhalation. Maybe you begin to notice the warmer air as you breathe out. Sensation of your lungs, chest, perhaps your belly. Shrinking back a little with your exhalation. Beginning to deepen your inhalation if that feels possible. Reaching the lowest lobes of your lungs, almost like you're directing it downwards towards your belly. And is it possible to make your inhalation and exhalation the same length? So ensuring your exhalation is the same length, perhaps even a moment longer, to make sure we're taking a full exhalation, removing any of the stale air that we may have residing in our lungs. It may feel like you're exhaling, exhaling, exhaling till you can't exhale anymore. So nurturing your breath as you inhale and exhale, and continue to nurture it as we come through our physical yoga practice, perhaps using it as a guide to gauge how far you go in each shape. The breath changes dramatically, knowing it's a sign to ease off, to soften a little. Also a tool to focus your mind, so as your mind wanders, our minds naturally wander, drawing your focus back towards the breath to find connection and presence once again. In your own time, taking your hands either overhead or perhaps out to the sides in a T shape, finding shape that supports your arms, so your arms, your elbows, your back of your hands, finding connection with the floor, maybe a folded blanket beneath you. An opportunity here to open up into the upper chest a little, perhaps even around the shoulder bits and the shoulder pits and arms, and maybe into the sides of your body. Maybe like, or prefer to come into more of a cactus arm shape with a bend in your elbow. Perhaps your breath changes a little in this shape. You may even notice a little movement in the back of your body. Arms slowly moving back towards your belly or the mat beside you. And an option here is take a clasp of your hands or perhaps an opposite wrist, beginning to reach overhead once again. So try to reach away in any way that feels okay for you, creating length and space on the size of your rib cage. So we're looking at working here with the intercostal muscles, the muscles in between each rib. And eventually bringing your hands back down towards the sides of your body. Drawing your right knee in, we'll begin to just create a little space around the hips, the glutes. It might be a soft hold or beginning to take your knee in towards your chest a little closer. You might also like to bring your foot into some movement, pointing and flexing, circle, spreading toes. And another option might be to extend through your right leg. Perhaps your hands can support your leg behind the right thigh and reaching up towards the sky with your heel. There could be quite a strong bend in the leg. Just trying to create a little bit of a sensation in the back of the legs, the hamstrings and calf muscles. Eventually finding your foot coming back down to the earth, reconnecting with the floor beneath you. And then eventually drawing your left knee in for a hug. Bringing some movement to your left foot. And then perhaps you begin to extend through your left leg, finding a sensation in the back of your leg. And reaching away with your heel, perhaps still moving your foot a little as well. Eventually allowing your left foot to come back down towards the earth. Taking your time to roll over onto one side, find your way into a tabletop shape. Setting your hands up if you know you need a little bit of height under your fingertips to soften into your wrists, or welcome to come into soft fists here if that feels more supportive. Softening into the elbows, a really gentle cat-cow to begin with. Dropping the belly and then rising the spine up towards the sky. Feeling into how your spine, the back of your body is doing. Maybe a soft movement here feels enough. Welcome to take it a little deeper. Perhaps you drop your belly a little further towards the earth, taking your gaze forwards. Rolling your spine up. Gaze could move to knees or chest or navel as you find cat. And if you'd like to integrate your breath, breathing in as you take your gaze forwards, breathing out as you curl your spine round. Eventually finding your way back to tabletop, to stillness, and coming into here a gentle twist. So being mindful of any shoulder injuries, we're going to begin to take the left hand and thread it through and under the right. Head coming to rest on the floor, maybe use a little bit of support here if that feels helpful, depending on mobility here. Right elbow could begin to ground down. You could keep a softness there, or maybe your right hand begins to walk away, making it more active. Finding here a shape again that works for you. So making sure the asana, the postures, suit your body and how you're feeling today, rather than the other way around. Breathing in as you slide your right hand back towards your body, come slowly round to tabletop once again, and we're taking it on the other side. So as you begin to thread your right hand through under your left, Head turning towards the left-hand side, gaze following, maybe using a block if that feels supportive for your head and your neck, or a cushion. And then perhaps your right elbow is resting on the floor, or maybe the left hand is walking away. Breathing in as you begin to return through center. Finding your hands underneath your shoulders again, or roughly underneath your shoulders. And we're going to begin to take our spine, our head and neck into a sort of S shape. So imagining the movement of a fish. Left ear moving to left shoulder, right ear moving to right shoulder. Beginning to perhaps roll your shoulders up and down. And feeling into your hips, perhaps your hips begin to move as well from left to right. And if you get to a point where it feels a really lovely release, maybe you take a couple of breaths there. And eventually finding stillness and tucking your toes as you begin to sit back a little. So making sure each toe's got a little space, perhaps even spreading them, taking them down towards the mat. And then fingers and hands are going to begin to work backwards a little. So we're looking to find a stretch sensation in the toes, and this might be enough here. I've come to soft fists. This might be just right as you begin to wake up your toes. If you feel you want something stronger, you could begin to sit back on your heels. And if that feels, again, maybe a little strong, or you feel like you've come too far, another option might be to gently slide forwards and gently slide back. So easing in and out of this shape. Finding a sense of your shoulders softening, space in your heart. Gaze just ahead. When you're ready, coming gently out of the shape, toe stretch. You might like to come back into tabletop and give the feet a little bit of a tap, allowing the blood to come back, allowing them to reawaken. And then we'll take our right foot forwards, left foot's going to follow, coming into a forward fold. So feet could be hip distance here if that feels okay for you. Bend in the knees, first forward fold, finding some small space in the back of your legs. You might like to take your gaze behind you or towards your knees, maybe even soften your gaze, close your eyes. Ensuring there's space for your neck, shoulders soft. And then on an inhalation, hands come into shins, slowly sliding up the front of your body as you begin to rise up into Tadasana. Finding the front edge of your mat as we begin to prepare for a hatha flow, creating some more length in our bodies. Perhaps your feet are together, or maybe they're slightly apart. You might like to rock backwards and forwards a little, waking up the soles of your feet, beginning to find your center point, spreading your toes, fingertips reaching down towards the earth. Breathing in, hands coming out to the front this morning. As you reach up, maybe your gaze follows. Breathing out, folding forwards, leading with your heart. Inhaling, flat back. Exhaling as you fold forwards back into Uttanasana. We'll take a couple more breaths here, finding a little bit more length through the back of your legs. Sitting bones are rising up towards the sky, so perhaps there's a little bit more of a lift. Knees could be strongly bent, perhaps they're almost straight. From here, we're going to step back with our right foot into a lunge position. Right toes grounding, right heel lifted. Left knee above left ankle, directly above left ankle. A shorter stance and feet being more hip distance can sometimes offer a bit more stability and balance. Hands perhaps come to hips as you find your drishti, your gaze. And then when you're ready, breathing and reaching up. If there's any pain or strain in your shoulders, you could come back to cactus arms or perhaps rest your arms on your lower back. Softness in your right knee. Exhaling, returning towards our right hand side into Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior 2. So adjusting the right foot, the right heel's coming all the way down and reaching away, taking your gaze over your left fingers. Making sure you're not trying to move forwards into the future too far. You're just torsos above hips. Hands are shoulder height. Might like to lift your toes. Notice the engagement through the soles of your feet. Jaw soft. Right palm beginning to face up towards the sky, reaching up and over as you spiral to frame your left foot, coming into plank. And this could be on knees or toes. We're only going to be here for a couple of breaths. Spreading the hands, really thinking about the weight of your body being even from the thumb to the little finger. On an exhalation, dropping to knees, we're coming into a side plank. Left hand coming through center. Welcome to take full side plank on feet, or perhaps the left foot stays grounded as you begin to turn towards your right hand side and reach up. My right foot here is resting on the floor. So finding here shape, you may need to adjust your hands, you may need to adjust your foot or knee position to help with the balance. Navel towards spine, protecting the lower back, but also engaging the core, helping, aiding our balance. Welcome from here to begin to lift the right leg up if you would like to. Right foot is flecked, heel reaching away. On an exhalation, foot grounding, if you did raise it, beginning to roll around through almost tabletop as you begin to roll down. And we're going to find Sphinx here. Elbows under shoulders. If you feel you need a softer back bend for your lower back, your elbows could come a little further forwards. Grounding through fingertips, shoulders softening, heart lifting. As the fingertips engage through the floor or your mat beneath you, noticing what changes. Welcome to come to a little bit of a neck stretch as you take your gaze towards the right, perhaps towards your right hip. Inhaling as you come back through center. Exhaling towards your left hand side and down towards your left hip. So working again the sweep with shoulders, a little bit in the neck and the upper back, thoracic spine. Breathing in to come through center if you were taking the neck movement. Breathing out as you lower down. On an inhalation, finding downward dog, or perhaps you prefer to come to half dog or child's pose, making sure your yoga practice is supporting you. All movement welcome in all the shapes. You may like to explore and move the hands a little, perhaps pedal your feet or move your feet depending on the shape you're in. If your body is ready for stillness, hands about shoulder width apart, feet about hip distance apart, and really beginning to find length in the back of the body if you're in downward dog. From here, we're going to gently drop down to our knees. Toes remain tucked. As we're beginning to rise up, we're going to take a soft version of Camel this morning. Hip bones directly above knees, beginning to reach up in front of us. Sweeping back, it's almost like we're trying to do breaststroke. Sweeping back and round, hands, palms coming to connect with the lower back, and fingertips are pointing down, almost like we're holding our kidneys. Breathing in, gently pushing pelvis forwards a little. And this might be enough for you here. Heart opener, slight back bend. Or maybe you begin to encourage your elbows together and your gaze to move towards the sky. We're not coming any further this morning. Taking it really easy, quite gentle in Camel. Can we feel quite strong? Is it possible to imagine you have a yoga block or brick between your thighs? And you're giving it a squeeze. It's going to help stabilize the sacroiliac joint. Inhaling as you slowly find your way back to center. Exhaling as you reach all the way down. You may like to take a gentle cat-cow to ease out of your back bend. Right foot's going to find its way forward towards the front of your mat. Left foot is following back into our forward fold. This is a great shape to release anything, any tightness in your lower back. And when you're ready, begin to breathe in and bend into your knees as you begin to rise up towards the sky. Breathing out as you bring your arms back down to the sides of your body. Taking your time to find your stable stance again. If it's helpful, maybe you're rocking backwards and forwards through your feet. Sense of grounding through the soles of your feet, but also being balanced, feeling centered. Perhaps you take your arms out to the side this time, breathing and reaching up, reaching out. And as you exhale, floating forwards. On an inhalation, flat back, perhaps your fingertips skim the mat. Exhaling, folding forwards. This time we're stepping into lunge with the left foot moving back. Left foot taking a step back, left toes grounded, left heel reaching or rising up. Right knee above right ankle. Finding your stable stance here. Perhaps the hands come to hips as you adjust a little. Once you feel balanced and stable, reaching up towards the sky if that feels okay for your shoulders. Maybe your gaze follows. Exhaling as you begin to turn towards your left hand side into our warrior two shape, and adjusting the left foot where you need to. Right knee is still directly above your right ankle. Gaze over your right hand, finding your inner strength in warrior. You might even like to lift your toes, ensuring your shoulders are soft, jaws are soft. Left palm beginning to face up towards the sky, spiraling up and over as you frame your right foot and find your plank, either on knees or toes. Fingers spread, weight even. If you know you're hypermobile or very flexible, rotating the hands in just a little. We're going to come into our side plank on the other side. Perhaps the right hand begins to come through center. I'm grounding through my right knee. And then as I turn towards the left hand side, my big toe edge of my foot is on the floor. Maybe even it's flat on the floor if that feels okay for you. Adjusting where necessary. Left palm beginning to rise up towards the sky. It can stay on the left hip if there's any pain in your left shoulder. Reaching up. Shoulders soft, jaw soft, and maybe the left leg begins to rise if you'd like to take this variation. On an exhalation, beginning to allow your foot to come back down towards the earth, rotating round into almost tabletop as you lower yourself down. And we'll come into Sphinx again. So finding your version, really welcome to come to a resting shape here if that feels more valuable for you. Hands are spread, heart rising, heart lifting, shoulder blades almost coming together. An option again to come into a twist, beginning to lift the right elbow, soft bend, as you take your gaze towards the right and perhaps a little further behind you. Trying to keep the hips, the pelvis grounding, and a sense of your inner thighs turning on. So imagining again you have something between your thighs that you're gripping. You might find it changes the back bend a little as you engage the thigh muscles. On an exhalation, coming straight through center. Inhaling as you begin to rise with the left elbow, keeping a softness in the left elbow, so we're not locking any joints. And maybe your gaze goes a little further over your left shoulder. Again, making sure the thighs, the inner thighs in particular, are turned on. Inhaling, slowly coming to center. Exhaling, lowering yourself down. And then finding your downward dog, perhaps puppy or child's pose if you prefer. Finding length in the back of your body, easing out of that particular back bend. All movement welcome, really welcome to explore here. Sitting bones rising up to the sky. And it's almost, if you're in downward dog, as though you're pushing the mat away with your hands, finding that extra bit of length through the back of your spine. Eventually dropping down to your knees. Toes remain tucked as we begin to rise up to take Camel for one more time. Looking to have the pelvis, the hip bones above the knees. Toes are tucked for stability there. Beginning to breathe and reach forwards, take that swim-like motion. Palms coming to connect with the lower back, lumbar spine. Fingertips pointing down, so you're holding your kidneys. And then gently pushing your pelvis forwards a little. And this might be enough for you here. Again, thinking about inner thigh grip. Imagining you have something there to hold on to. Once you're there, maybe you begin to lean back a little, elbows reaching towards each other, gaze moving upwards. Any pain or strain in the lower back or neck, easing out. Remembering those beautiful words, stira and sukha, steadiness and ease, feeling a sense of steadiness, of grounding in this, but also a softness, there's an ease to it, so you know you haven't gone too far, your breath is still flowing. On an inhalation, beginning to slowly rise up, coming to all fours, hands and knees, and taking your time to ease out a little. You may prefer to come into what I call catfish again, or fish-like movement through the spine, Perhaps a round or two of cat-cow to ease through the spine. Eventually, left foot is stepping forwards. Right foot is going to follow as we come into our forward fold Uttanasana. Allowing any residual vibrations of Camel to subside. And when you're ready, bending into your knees a little further, maybe you take your hands out to the sides as you rise up. And on an exhalation, finding your way back into Tadasana. Taking your time to come down towards your mat, we'll begin to cool down. If you would like to take bridge, you're really welcome to take an active version or a resting version here. I've got a couple of blocks. If you've got a bolster or a brick, something that you can prop under your pelvis, under your hips, please do find some support and making it more restful as we begin to cool down. Finding the support you have, popping it underneath the hips and feeling fully supported here. So if you're using more of a thinner block or cork brick, making sure it's the widest surface area possible under the hips so the whole area feels stable, feels supported. Finding the happy place for your feet, a sense that your feet are parallel. Toes are pointing forwards. And we're making this as restful as we can. You could, if you had a belt or a grip or a scarf, you could tie that around your legs so even your legs are beginning to find support. Perhaps your hands rest on the floor beside you, palms facing up towards the sky. Welcome to soften your gaze or close your eyes. And perhaps you can invite your body to be held by the mat beneath you, the props you are using, and by the earth itself. Watching your breath flow in and flow out, and taking 4 more breaths in bridge. Maybe noticing how bridge feels compared to camel, very similar shapes, one lying down, one kneeling. When you're ready, easing yourself out of bridge. And if you're using more than one prop beneath your pelvis and hips, removing one at a time. Slowly, surely coming back down towards the earth. And you may like to draw your knees in for a hug before we find relaxation. Taking any movement here that feels helpful. Before you find stillness. And relaxation can take many forms, so making sure you feel comfortable in the form you have come to. Beginning to soften through your body, encouraging your body to rest. Maybe you're able to soften a little more through your glutes, hips, pelvis, shoulders. Maybe your tongue could rest in the lower part of your mouth. Inviting a yogic sleep as you rest and restore. Encouraging movement back to your body slowly, mindfully. Perhaps taking some deeper breaths as you gently awaken from relaxation. Maybe your hands, your arms move overhead for a full stretch from the tips of your toes to the fingertips. Welcome to draw your knee in one at a time or together. Eventually finding your way onto one side, perhaps resting your head on your arm, softness in your knees. Before you take your hands and use your arms, your hands to support you to find an upright seated shape. following the journey of your inhalation and exhalation. And perhaps taking your hands over heart center, or maybe hands together at heart center. Thanking yourself for creating this space for you this morning. Thanking yourself for practicing yoga. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to take my hands to my forehead for kind thoughts, to my lips for kind words, and to my heart center for kind actions. Om Shanti.